In this video, I will explain the use of the number 3 in building or generally in design. It's basically a cheat sheet for a player that doesn't want to get too deep into the principle of designs, and they just want to jump straight to make the build to impress their friends. Well, if they have a friend. Okay, not really. I just think that building is a huge part of Minecraft, but not everyone is a designer, and that's why I'm making this video. But you might be asking, why the number 3? Well, I'm not an expert, but let's take examples in real life. For example, the Illumin. Okay, I was joking. The number 3 just give enough variation. Humans like odd numbers. And we're here not to be the next Grian or the next car. We're just trying to have a humble beginning. Let's start simple. 3 dirt shack is better than 1 because 1 makes you feel lonely. And maybe you are. I don't know. But then 3, now you have something to compare. But accept that this 3 is the same. But we can do variation, like giving height difference to each of them. And now you have something to compare to, like the English comparison, big, bigger, biggest. But this is too uniform, so we can merge them. And now this house has 3 different heights, 3 different layering, and even the windows are 3. And this is a lot more interesting than this or that or that. Like, I know this is just a dirt house, but the fact that this is just a dirt house and you already have interesting shape, it just shows that the number 3 is useful in buildings and designs. Okay, before you guys think I'm lying or something, if I just make this up, whatever I will say is a compressed version of what you learned from a design major. Well, you can also study it from YouTube like I did because I never paid attention in class. But like, what I mean is that all this, I did some research, right? And it's oversimplified but like, that's kind of the point anyway. I also have to add that you should still look for reference and one of those building ideas videos, because what I will cover up is not how to build a table, but instead, I'm going to IKEA, look for the table that I need, and then I'll figure out where to put the table. Anyway, the reason that the number 3 works because of these 2 things. The big, medium, small, and the golden ratio. And they have something in common. Is that they give contrast from each other. Like, you can tell this is the small, this is the medium, and this is the big. But these 2 isn't that similar, so that's why it works. And golden ratio is literally how different the first cube to the second cube. I mean the square. And then, like, you can keep going, but this could just be the small. Anyway, the number 3 could be applied to anything else. It doesn't need to be the height. Like, you can tell the layering also works, but in this case, for example, this house applies the big, medium, small in the size, like dirt shack in a dirt shack in a dirt shack. But like, you can also apply it to the gap. Like these uniform gaps, it's bad because it looks boring. But then if you do this different gaps, now that's interesting. And then you can like polish it and it becomes a modern house. You get a modern house out of this shape. So yeah. And not to mention that the modern house also use 3 colors, like white, black, brown. And then also the layering, 1, 2, 3. Like, this is the very out, and then the middle, and then the very deep. Now, let us talk about proportion, what big, medium, small is used the most at. As I said before, it's better if you have a huge contrast gap. It's not that you must follow this, but I mean, you can tell that a house, this looks more like a house than this, even though you can argue that this is a mushroom house, but like, I mean, this also works because you can still tell which one is the big, which one is the small, which one is the medium. But okay, whatever that I just said is a bad example. So I made some houses and look at this. The medium and the big is kind of similar, and of course this looks bad compared to this, because well, this is how you would make a roof in real life, right? But what if you commit to the size? You might say that this is a lot more worse than this, but you have to keep in mind this is big, medium, and small, but you're forgetting the layers because this has big contrast compared to this, but from the birch and the oak is just a small gap, so that's why it looks sucks. And what can you do is alter the roof shape. Now it looks like a mushroom house, and the layering is a lot more consistent and big, medium, small. Anyway, the big, medium, small applies to any shape of your building and any size. Even something big like this also follows the big, medium, small. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looked kind of ugly, and I will cry if my husband bought me this house. Divorce. It kind of look like a British soldier, the bear skins. Anyway, but I guess you can say that this plot is some kind of fantasy houses, and maybe this is some kind of a cult. I don't know. Be creative. Anyway, a house should have a great foundation, and that's why we're talking about floor plans. I mean, you can have this, just a single square, like the example that I'm about to show you and the example that I have shown you. You can also apply the number 3 to the floor plan, like this. This is already a lot more interesting than that, but why stop here? Take a look of this. You can use the squares, the other squares, to add or subtract, and then you get something like this. And keep in mind that you can always change your plan as you go. Like, for example, I shorten the orange box and then I give some path in here, on here, but then I change my mind and I just make some kind of roof, and imagine that this is like some kind of outdoor garage. I don't know what it's called. I will say that the floor looks more interesting than the other one, like the singular one. But I guess like the windows looks kinda sucks, but I'm kinda lazy to do this one anyway. So yeah, just ignore it. But if you really insist to have a single house as a foundation, for example, the house over there, you can do something like this. Like literally just add smaller house. Add smaller box at the front, so it's not really flat. And for example, this house that I broke in from Pinterest and recreate. If we break it down, you can already tell that this is divided in 3. 1, 2, 3. Now this is going to be the fun part, because I'm going to be honest, color theory is just a fancy labeling. Like literally, if you ask some people like what's the complementary of red, some will say green, but some even say cyan, because if you invert, like if you take a photo and invert it, it turns cyan. So yeah, even people argue over it, because green and cyan is close to each other, so it doesn't matter if you follow like split complementary or triad or the others. Like it doesn't matter, but you need to know how to play the contrast of the value, and there's 3 variables to play with to make a great contrast, and I shall explain what value, luminosity, saturation, and hue is. Hue is basically what color it is. And this is saturation. It's basically means how gray the color is. The more gray the color looks, the less saturation it has. And then luminosity, which is just a fancy name for brightness. And I don't need to explain it, but keep in mind that this color, yellow and white, literally shares the same brightness. The only difference is the yellow got some saturation and white doesn't have saturation. And why this happened? Why white looks brighter? Well, because white has less value than yellow, which is where value counts. I will try my best to explain this because it's kind of hard. Okay, all these colors are more or less the same saturation and luminosity, just with different colors, but when you put it side to side, you can feel that this yellow is, well, for the lack of term, it is softer than blue, even though you get the same. Like, take example, these three colors. On the color wheel, the cross is kind of in the same area, but you can tell that the red is a lot darker because red has more value. And then I guess you can try to sort the color. Anyway, now that you know the variables, we can now start with grabbing any colors. In this case, magenta, blue, and darker magenta. In theory, it's a great color combo. It's analogous. But obviously, this three color look sucks because all of them, like literally all of them, has bright saturation. Has high saturation. Not to mention that all of them has like similar stats. And so how do you fix this? Oh, you literally just allow one saturated color. And why is that? Because saturated color is destined to be like an accent color. Like if you do this, it's like one person who's loud with a microphone, but at least this is just one person that's loud and the rest is just silence. So what can you do when you pick a color? You can either give minus saturation and minus brightness, which looks dull, but if it's your style, you can do so. It's the guy who screams, and these two is the silent guy. And then you can plus saturation and plus brightness, which give this one the saturated color because these two kinda looks desaturated. And the other thing you can do is mix these two, these two with these two, which, well, is no longer monochrome. So what counts as a cold color and a warm color? A warm color usually goes closer to orange and a cold color usually goes closer to blue. I guess you can say that this feels more cold than this. In generally blue looks cold, but take example on this. This feels a bit like a purple, even though this is actually desaturated. Okay, it is kinda purple, but it's also desaturated. I see this feels more blue and this feels more green. And it's trying to get to the warm color. And then if I add something like yellow, I guess it is this is, see, this blue, these two is blue, but this feels more green, therefore feels more warm because it's trying to get closer to orange. I also need to point out that the thing is, even IRL buildings with saturated colors are usually end up a bit dull because of dust or something. So yeah, saturated color is just really shows in real life, so it's gonna looks weird. And now finally we can go to another example. For example, we're gonna take some random color, even though it's kinda end up as a split complementary. I know these two is saturated color, but the brown is dark, so it feels less saturated. And then you can also do this, it's from the same color, but you can choose to use the yellow for the bright color and magenta for the dark color. And then this again I mean, I will use the help because I think the dark color looks better, but I don't like the stripe. So yeah, it's kind of eh, it's kind of a me problem anyway. And then, for example, you don't like a color. What you can do is change the color. I mean, change the hue. And then you got this. And it actually looks like a sniffer. Which literally means that you can actually take colors from existing color palette. But you need to know how to give them contrasting value because to be honest, they are kinda fighting for the saturated color. That's why I would rather decrease the saturation and decrease the brightness. And if you still don't like the color, what you can do is add natural color, which is black, gray, and white, and then turn the pink into an accent color. Or you can just eliminate the color if you really don't like it. And last but not least, window placement. Again, we use the number 3 to divide the house. In this case, you can do it horizontally, vertically, and then do both. Like, bap, 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 bap. And there you have it, the usage of the number 3. I probably missed something, but you guys can figure it out on your own. But that's the end of the video. If it's helpful, obviously leave a like and sub. It will help me grow and it fits my right. So yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.